It's the Security Weekly News, and it's episode 479. It's not quite as exciting as the Monaco F1 race weekend, but it's almost there. And we have the yachts and the paparazzi and all that here. They're just outside off camera. But it's Friday the 23rd of May. Welcome to the show. We've got keyboards, 3 a.m., TikTok, LummaC2, Cityworks, Honeypots, Fancy Bear, Aaran Leyland, and more on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News. Imagine a world where every threat, ransomware, supply chain attacks, zero-day exploits, is stopped before it can even begin. ThreatLocker makes that world a reality with a zero-trust approach to cybersecurity. By giving you granular control on every executable that can happen in your environment, ThreatLocker protects your business around the clock. No more guessing, no more gaps, just rock-solid protection that keeps your operations running smoothly and your data secure. Discover how ThreatLocker's least privilege approach can safeguard your organization against known and unknown threats. Take the first step toward total peace of mind. Visit securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker today. All right, it's the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White. Hit that like and subscribe button and leave a comment, or I don't know, I'll do something crazy. Yeah, you'll see. 3 a.m. It used to be, I always thought this was weird. For some reason, I always thought that 3 a.m. was when late became early. I don't know why. It's like 2:45. Let's order another round. 3:15. Maybe I should go home. I mean, it was literally just, I don't know, it was some arbitrary thing. But 3 a.m. is also a ransomware. Now, I know we don't talk about ransomware that much anymore, or that's all we talk about. But I thought it was a good time and a good example of the evolution of ransomware to bring it back up with you. So 3 a.m. is associated with highly targeted attacks, which use email bombing, spoofed IT support calls, social engineering, and they're all trying to get your employees to give up their network credentials. Sophos reported that they saw 55 attacks like this between November of 2024 and January of 2025. Now, Black Basta was the kind they kind of created this originally, this very multi-phasic social engineering, email, etc. kind of attack, but it continues to evolve. And the original ones were people pretending to be Microsoft Support IT help desk, and they would contact you via Teams. But the 3 a.m. people are now actually using phone calls, so literal phone calls, instead of using Teams or something like that. And they send a whole side order of email bombing that in one case that Sophos was talking about, there were 24 emails were received in about 3 minutes. And this is all these alerts and your system is I don't know what they actually said, but they're spear phishing emails that come right at you telling you, oh no, oh no, oh no. And then you get a phone call from IT. And the number that the call comes from is the actual number. It's spoofed, but it's the real number for the IT department of the victim. And those are really easy to get, right? Because there's corporate directories or whatever. And we get that IT number. You could probably just call somebody and get the IT number. I mean, if I called a lot of companies right now and said, what's the number for your IT department? They would tell it to me. I mean, they're kind of supposed to. Well, so then once they get you to go, oh no, what the hell is going on? And IT is calling and you go, yeah. And they're like, hi, this is Ted from IT. They got the employees to open Microsoft Quick Assist, which is, of course, Microsoft's tool that allows them to take over the machine, grant remote access to IT, the spoofed IT, and then they download and extract a VBS script, a QEMU emulator, and a Windows 7 image that's preloaded with QDOR, which is a backdoor Trojan. QEMU was being used, and QEMU, if you don't know, is another type of virtualization tool Uh, it may be QEMU. I've always called it QEMU, but I don't know how you say it because I've never heard anybody say it. But QEMU is used to route traffic through virtual machines, which helps them to hide this whole operation. So they set up this whole little thing on the local machine. So, I mean, basically, I think the lesson here is that this type of a targeted attack is an infinite series. When I was testing these tactics back on bank employees in the 1980s, we just kept dialing until, my hand got too cold from leaning out the window to use a payphone, or we ran out of quarters, or we got somebody to bite. It eventually someone will go for this. It may not be you. I know it won't be you. You're way too cynical. It probably won't be that person sitting next to you because they're also way too cynical. But when they get old Gil down in marketing who's having a weird day or whatever, and they're just like, what is happening? It works and somebody's going to go for it. So I think we have to keep diligent with monitoring what's going on with this stuff and what are you going to do when it does happen and how do you train your employees to try to resist this? I mean, it's almost like you need one of those secret code words. Like my daughter and I used to have a secret code word for when she was at ski school or she was somewhere. And if somebody showed up and said, "Oh, your dad sent me to pick you up," her response was, "What's the code word?" And if they were wrong, then she was supposed to, pepper spray them right then and give it a shot in the old fork. But I mean, that, you may have to get to that until we can get some kind of absolute identity management in place. But what are you going to do when old Gil goes for this? Test your plans, make sure they work, make sure they work. And I don't just mean ask everybody like, what are you going to do? And they all go, I will, test it, live fire it. And maybe you have a backup plan for when the first plan fails. As Helmuth von Moltke said, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Only he said it in German and it was a little more eloquent. Or as a better one, Mike Tyson put it this way: everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. I'm not even going to try to do Mike Tyson's voice because he'll come and punch me in the mouth. So, but you get the idea. Oh, TikTok, the king of thirst traps. She tried to put 3 baby alligators where? Clickbait. Doctor looks in scope and finds Elvis in man's colon. It's the modern version of the New York Post or the Sun or something. Wolf boy found living in Penn Station. Freddie Starr ate my hamster. Anything's fair game on TikTok. TikTok actually makes them look like amateurs, right? But unlike ridiculous print newspapers, criminals can also use TikTok to trick people into doing all kinds of things. You get in a lot more trouble than, if you just click on a risque video or a thirst trap or a clickbait, maybe, but you can also get in a whole lot of trouble there. She went on stage wearing this and the crowd went wild. But this latest threat uses videos that are very likely AI generated, and they provide instructions. Yes, instructions for things like how to activate Windows in Microsoft Office, possibly illegally. They don't really say that, but it's more like, hey, you need to activate your Windows and not pay. Okay. They also have some that say that are things like how to activate premium features in CapCut and Spotify, stuff people are looking for. So, let me see. Oh, the secret codes are actually PowerShell scripts. Oh, yeah. And of course that might make sense, right? If you're trying to manipulate the registry somehow, a PowerShell script might make some sense. But guess what the script is? Run by you, probably as admin. Well, it downloads remote scripts from the domain allaivo.me/Spotify and installs Vidar or SteelC info stealers, launched as a hidden process with elevated permissions because you were running that PowerShell script as admin, of course, right? Of course, they probably instruct you to do that. Vidar can take screenshots, grab all your credential info, credit cards, crypto wallets, anything of value can be grabbed and stolen because it's admin. Now, another approach is called click fix, which we've seen a lot too, which is where fake errors or verifications pop up saying, oh no, something's happening. Click here on this video to show, and we'll show you how to fix it. And again, you get a walkthrough of a PowerShell script and so forth. And hey, they also target Macs and Linux users with similar tactics. So you might want to warn your users about this. One, don't run scripts or anything that you downloaded unless you understand what it does. Meaning if you're downloading scripts or instructions for scripts and you have no idea what a script actually is, probably that's a bad idea. Now, of course, if you're trying to steal something or break, licensing agreements or whatever, you probably, this is the old wares thing. Like, would you like a fully licensed copy of I don't know, Antares harmonizer? Sure, click here. So this is a pretty big threat. I would try to ensure that your users can't run PowerShell scripts locally at least. She leaned down to check her group policy objects and this happened. Yeah, so you maybe think about this a bit. Microsoft teamed up with the U.S. Department of Justice to take down the LummaC2 malware infrastructure that was being used to steal personal data from users. So LummaC2 is a malware as a service kind of tool. It's an info stealer. It grabs login credentials, all kinds of fun stuff. It'll grab credentials away from you like somebody grabbing a handful of lira from a tourist on the streets of Rome. I saw that happen once. Now, unlike getting your lira stolen by a girl on a Vespa, the creds are used to set up fraudulent bank transfers and crypto theft. So it's actually a lot worse. When they took your 500 lira and you went, I can't buy an espresso. Now they can take, everything in your bank account. The Department of Justice said the aim with this operation was to remove the command and control infrastructure from the malware operation rather than just taking down public domain facing sites, because that doesn't do much good, really. I mean, it helps, but it doesn't really stop it. They just put up new domains, right? They have to sort of start again. Now, LummaC2 operates on a plan where criminals pay for a license and then they get to use the tools under that license. Kind of like, Joe's Rid-A-Gun. But taking down the public-facing sites is just not going to do much. So to help with the seizure, though, Microsoft took down 2,300 public-facing domains associated with LummaC2, and the LummaC2, and that helped keep people from getting to it and using it, but that, wouldn't really stop it until the Justice Department steps in and goes after the infrastructure. Now, the LummaC2 malware has been connected with 1.7 million or so instances of fraud, and that's just ones that were reported. So it's obviously a large-scale operation. It's good to see them trying to be more aggressive at taking this stuff down. Chinese-speaking threat actors are suspected to have exploited a Trimble Cityworks 0-day to deploy backdoors against local government entities in the United States, according to Cisco Talos. Cityworks, if you don't know what it is an asset and work management system that's primarily targeted at public infrastructure organizations like, towns and whatever. The vulnerability it did allow people to do remote code execution on the Microsoft IIS web server, which is essentially where Cityworks runs. So that's the back end of it. The flaw was patched on the 28th of January, and some of it was patched on the 29th if you had Cityworks with Office Companion. So, you may be saying, well, gee, we don't do that. We're not a small town or anything like that. But I mean, this is all part of a mechanism by nation states to try to find the weakest links in the overall model. And local and city governments, law enforcement, and so forth often have very, very limited resources. And Andy and Barney still have to call Aunt B to bring food over from the jail, right? I mean, that's how it works. I mean, Mayberry IT is really just 17-year-old Opie Taylor trying to manage the 4 servers they use to keep track of Otis the drunk and parking tickets they issued. But last year, Mayberry connected to the state police system so they could look up what Floyd the barber was really up to back in the 50s. I mean, that's kind of reaching the limit of my references to the Andy Griffith Show, because that's about all I know about it. But I think the lesson here is that we're going to have to do better supporting small public entities, but we also need to be careful what we are connecting to our networks, lest some nation state gets into our system through the Howard Sprague for Mayor.org site that's connected to your printer system. Actually, I heard they opened a factory that makes sex toys in Mayberry for, just for the jobs. And no. Okay, I'm not going there. The whole joke about Thelma Lou and Barney Fife and the sex toy. Yeah, we're not going there. Nope. Just don't. That's it. I'm out. I can't drop my mic. So the Norwegian University for Science and Technology, Gjovik, and I probably mispronounced that, sorry, Norwegian friends, and the Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands showed that a significant percentage of industrial control systems instances that they detected by scanning the internet were actually honeypots. And I initially thought that was kind of weird, but then I started thinking more about, SCADA, ICS type systems. Basically they used 17 widely, very common industrial control protocols. And they found that there were about 150,000 industrial control SCADA type devices across 175 countries connected to the internet. That sounds like a lot to me. I'm not sure why these things are connected to the internet and public facing anyway. That's just against everything that I've, been yapping about for all these years that we've been doing this show. But there they are. The researchers used a bunch of different techniques to determine if these systems were honeypots then. So they went on into, are these real ICS systems or are they possibly honeypots? So they were using Census. If you've not seen that, it's a Shodan like tool. But Census was used to collect the data on the internet exposed systems. But their paper did show you how you could use their approach with Shodan or just set up, roll your own scanning. I guess you could use it with just about any kind of scanner. Now, the analysis was conducted between January 24th or January of 2024 and January of 2025. So they had a whole year of this. And in April of 2024, they said that about 15% of ICS devices appeared to be honeypots. But by January of 2025, almost 25% of the devices they were seeing were honeypots. I mean, I don't know what this means, really. I mean, ICS is heavily targeted if you've got it publicly, outward facing, which I continue to say is a really bad idea. Like, nobody should be seeing your ICS. It should be behind a VPN and nobody should be seeing it. Yours should not be in that 150,000 unit. But I guess having honeypots around to distract people or collect data might be a reasonable idea. I mean, to me, the downside of the honeypots is like the old saying, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar, but you catch no flies at all in a hermetically sealed chamber at the bottom of the sea. So, but I get it. I mean, honeypots can be part of intrusion prevention systems because if you can, cause the IPS to trigger putting up a block against those IPs so that when the person is probing this fake ICS system, you realize they're probably an attacker and you go ahead and block them away from any other things, then you can identify them and block them before they get to that actually gooey marrow of the ICS system. Better yet, don't expose your ICS systems to the public internet. Put this stuff on a VPN and keep people away from it. Use multi-factor. Don't let anybody see it. None of these researchers should be seeing it. Period. Fancy Bear. I haven't mentioned Fancy Bear in a long time. Really. I mean, it's Fancy. They're one of the oldest, APT groups. Fancy Bear is APT 28, which shows you how old they are. And if you don't know or you don't remember, Fancy Bear is affiliated with Russian Intelligence Directorate, which is called GRU. And apparently they've been ramping up attacks on logistics and IT firms, particularly those who have aided the Ukraine. So anybody who was supporting the military action by the Ukraine to resist the Russian oppressors, yes, I'll say it. I don't care what the federal government says. I won't be here next week. I'll be replaced by the pink lady who'll be saying, no, the Russians are good. Yeah, I can't follow all this. A joint advisory from 21 intelligence agencies, including the U.S. and the U.K. and other 9 other countries, described these attacks as targeting Western tech firms and companies in the air, maritime, and railway transportation sectors, which doesn't bode well for Newark, New Jersey. They are using spear phishing, no surprise there, credential guessing, and exploits against Microsoft Exchange to get access to the networks. So this could be the precursor to them trying to, either cause problems or shut something down. I mean, this is a nation state targeting Western assets. In the United States in particular, CISA warned that executives and network defenders at logistics entities and tech companies should recognize the elevated threat of Fancy Bear targeting. I mean, I'm like, why just executives and network administrators? I would say every single employee is a target. So, end user, you should probably be warning your end users that, when Boris Badenoff calls to help you upgrade your Windows machine, you might want to report that and not run that PowerShell script called Zadnaya Odverstia. Is that right? Zadnaya Odverstia. Sorry, Russian friends. Yeah, you can look up what that means. I amuse myself anyway. Just to continue my cautions to you about AI, and I'm not Harry Warner, who said, "Who the hell wants to hear actors talk?" Boy, that's a dated reference. But I think AI is here to stay, and we need to start dealing with it just like we had to learn to deal with talking pictures. Oh, Clara Bow, you might have been the it girl of the 20s. Sorry, I said IT automatically. The it girl of the 1920s, but you weren't of the 1930s. Shout out to Brooklyn, though. Yeah, because they were all like, accent? What accent? But anywho, be careful with the old AI, right? I mean, it's very useful in its own way, but you got to be careful. So this story was talking about how a summer reading list that was in, some special section of the Chicago Sun-Times and the Philadelphia Inquirer, editor, like you didn't check those sources, but they ran this, and I guess it was like a fluff piece, like reading this summer when you're headed to the beach, check out these books. But apparently the reading list had books by some authors that didn't exist, and also had authors that do exist with books they never wrote. you know we know where they got this reading list. Now look, it was like I could stay here and work, or I could go home. Hey, Chatty. Now I asked Boris, which is what I call my Chat GPT, to draw me a diagram of this network infrastructure I designed, and I gave it the layout, and I told it what I just wanted a picture. I hate drawing. I'm terrible at using Visio and those kind of things. And I was like, "Can you draw this for me?" And it just started adding crazy stuff to it. I gave it the list with the IP addresses and the purpose of the servers, and it's just like, hey, I'm going to go crazy. It labeled one server as Jupcar. I can't pronounce. I don't know how to say it. It's like, the server who used to be known as Prince. And the other one was called a Biot server. I was like, Biots? Ooh, have we got some of those here? Like 7 of 9, I'm calling for you. But it also listed a couple of new servers that weren't even there on my list, but they were on my picture. So it's a good thing I looked at it before I used it in a presentation and went like, here's what your network's going to look like. And they're going, what's a Biot server? Like, yeah, let me make something up. So I guess the lesson is that much like the arrival of movie sound, not everything is going to go as planned. Some people are going to have such bad accents that no one can understand them outside of Prospect Heights. And some people are going to get really embarrassed when their boss asks ask you to get a copy of that Mishka report that you cited in the TPS monthly report. And where is that server we are providing biots? And you're standing there going, let us look into that. Okay. Well, you can count on him to not make anything up most of the time. Maybe at 5 a.m., over there at the Hogs and Heifers bar or something, he might give you a different answer. But he's live from the Isles, the British Isles. It's Aaran Leyland. Hi, Aaron.
Hey, Dr. Doug, I love Hogs and Heifers. When are we going to Hogs and Heifers next?
I know you like that. Yeah, that's like your favorite. I'm going out there. I'm going to Vegas in September to see a show at the Sphere because I've never been to the Sphere. And
I seen like a drum and bass ravey one on social media.
This is like a EDM festival or something. So we're gonna go see it, and we're gonna stay over there near that. Not beside that bar, but over in that area. So.
Not that they're legal in the UK and I follow the law, but I'm like, imagine it on mushrooms.
Oh, let's not.
Yeah. Anyway, GitLab's AI assistant flaw, code exposure by design. Bringing us back to reality, even though it feels like we're all tripping all the time when it comes to cyber, right? So we've all watched companies rush to add AI assistants to coding workflows, feeling both excitement and unease. I'm just excited, to be honest. This week, that unease proves justified. A dark reading report revealed a flaw in GitLab's AI-based code assistant that exposed developers' code to potential theft. Obviously, in plain terms, the very tool meant to help write and review code could have handed attackers the keys to our intellectual property. China, stop getting excited. I can see you sitting in the corner, shaking. So GitLab's AI pair programmer Duo was deeply integrated into the platform. The problem was that Duo trusted user-provided content far too much. Researchers found, I love researchers, that they could hide malicious prompts in innocuous places like comments, commit messages, issue descriptions, and Duo would execute them blindly because it's just a machine, right? So in one proof of concept, a hidden HTML snippet in a merge request caused Duo's response to include malicious content. When the output rendered in the browser, it quietly sent a request to the attacker's server. smuggling out, exfiltrating private source code. Duo was wired into every corner of GitLab's environment because why not? Just throw it everywhere. Bish, bish, bish. And didn't distinguish a real task from a cleverly planted instruction. So that meant an enormous attack surface. An attacker could plant a poison snippet in a public repo, and any developer's AI assistant that touch it might leak secrets. So it was a design oversight, not a one-off bug, right? So GitLab patched the issue, but obviously this incident's a wake-up call for anyone integrating generative AI into development pipelines without a clear security model. Get out there and clear security model things, guys. So the GitLab case highlights a wider issue, prompt injection. Doug talks about it all the time because he knows. Which essentially are adversarial prompts that fool the AI and is an inherent risk to these AI helpers. Any system that blindly follows instructions can be misled. That's like me at 5 a.m. I can be so misled, normally by Doug coming out of Hogs and Heifers. Let's go to another bar, Aaron. It's like, yeah, hell yeah. Why wouldn't I? Anyway, earlier this year, researchers jailbroke GitHub Copilot by embedding hidden commands in code, tricking it into producing forbidden functionality. If even, right, a flagship AI coder can be manipulated, it shows how easily a helpful, it just reminds me of Clippy assistant can be turned against us. AI use can also create insider threat headaches, and as if we don't have enough of them. So Samsung, for example, found that engineers accidentally leaked sensitive code to ChatGPT. Samsung swiftly banned such usage. It's like, put in controls, Samsung. Who are you? So Apple likewise restricted employee use of ChatGPT and Copilot, citing fears that confidential code might leak into AI's training data or answers. Of course it will, unless you put in controls. So the concerns are valid. One analysis found roughly 8.5% of employees' Gen AI prompts included sensitive data, nearly 10%. That's ridiculous, right? So anything you feed into the AI could later resurface if the model isn't locked down. Also, because we don't hear enough of this, another worry is supply chain exposure. So security experts, including new OWASP guidelines, warn that malicious or backdoored models and data sets could be slipped into the mix, leading to outcomes from biased code to data exfiltration. Look, attackers are certainly paying attention. Attention? Yeah, I was getting so excited about saying China again, I can't even speak. So that is China. Anyway, researchers are showing that they can coerce advanced models into regurgitating pieces of their training data that should have stayed secret. If that training data includes your proprietary code, that is a serious leak risk. Even at a national security level, the US Space Force, I so want to be in US Space Force. I was in the Air Force, which seems like Space Force should be better than the Air Force, right? Because it's in space. Although they do stuff the Navy way. Why is that? I actually know, but we ain't got time. So they temporarily banned generative AI for official work until they ensure no sensitive data leaks. Good luck with that, Space Force. Go and build your golden dome, and hopefully we can do EDM parties inside it. Okay, moving forward, we must treat AI coding assistants as full members of the development team with access, permissions, and accountability to match. In practice, give these tools the minimum access they need, monitor their output, set strict rules on what they can ingest or shape. Obviously, you wouldn't let people would, but anyway, you wouldn't let a junior developer push code to production or read all your confidential files without oversight. CrowdStrike might. No, they wouldn't. They're better than that. So the same caution applies to an AI helper. Enforce least privilege, audit what the AI is doing, educate developers on safe use of AI. That way we get the productivity boost of generative coding we're all talking about without giving the keys away. So with proper safeguards in place, an AI assistant can be an amazing teammate, doesn't talk back, doesn't take you drinking after work. But without them, it's a potential superpowered insider waiting to be exploited. GitLab's experience has made the lesson clear. Integrate AI, but do so with eyes wide open and guards up. Look, people should be watching this on YouTube because I'm doing some boxing now. But anyway, back to Doug in the studio. As a top coder of Fortran, he might surely agree. Dr. Doug.
Yay, Fortran. In all its many forms. The first one I coded was Fortran 2. So,
What happened
yeah.
to Fortran 1?
I don't know. I never saw Fortran 1. I'm sure it was a thing. Maybe, I don't know if it was like, I mean, this was in, like the 70s when it was Fortran 2. So, and the Fortran originally came out in the 60s. So maybe that was Fortran 1. I never dealt with Fortran 1. If it was probably pretty hard to deal with. Thank you, Aaron. One thing we all have besides opinions and Zadnaya adversities is keyboards. Keyboards are the most ubiquitous thing there is, right? I mean, we all have them. We've had them for a long time. We had them before we had mice. And this op-ed was about Linus Torvalds using Apple M2 laptops for test builds, and then later switching back to the Cherry Blue mechanical keyboard. Now, I've typed on everything. I learned to type on an Underwood manual typewriter that was made out of like steel, and it weighs a lot. Like if there's a tornado or something, that's what you hold on to. My dad is like, grab the Underwood, we won't go anywhere. And and your fingers end up being able to crush walnuts because you're typing on that. But I worked on that all the way to like gel keyboards and projected laser keyboards. Remember those things where it's like put a little stand up and it projects a keyboard on the table, and on and on. But this article was talking about that everybody's favorite original keyboard was the IBM Model M. I mean, most of us have used those at some point in time, and it's the 40th anniversary of those keyboards. Now, I think we had a couple of those at Lou's house that went to the dump when they closed out his estate, but I couldn't get to all that stuff because I didn't have any authority. But Model M's, they're not backlit, they're not modern, but you might want to give them a wipe down if you have one or you want to use it, because they've probably been sitting somewhere and been touched by like more people than like the subway pole. But they're mechanical, they're noisy as hell. But most people really, really like them. It was one of my favorite keyboards. Now, Linus Torvalds said he went back to the Cherry Blue keyboard, which is similar, except it's a modern, version. It's backlit. It's a mechanical keyboard, and it sounds like somebody's popping corn if you type really fast. Now, I personally have my. I'm not going to touch it because no telling what would happen. But I have a Corsair K70, which I like a lot. I mean, I've had, I don't know, 3 or 4 of these things because they get cat hair in them or cat puke on them. And then it's kind of like, let's get a new one. But I really like them. But everybody in my vicinity sounds like, it's at the firing range at Rodman's on a busy day. I mean, I can type really fast, and I've been doing it since the 1970s. So, I don't know the answer to what the best keyboard is. I guess it's whatever you like. I mean, if you like the smooth stylings of a MacBook, it's silent, or the Steam era sounds coming out of my Corsair, but I do like my mechanical keyboards. If you have to share an office with me, well, earplugs are cheap, so get over it. I mean, those gel, you remember those gel things? Like pop, pop, pop. Oh man, I hated those things. That was the absolute worst. That is the news. Thank you, Aaron, and we'll see you next time on the Security Weekly News.